At my daughter's wedding, her fiancé pulled out a chair, then I fell into a dark secret. The splendor of the wedding stood in sharp contrast to the unease that hung in the air. Laughter echoed through the lavishly decorated hall, yet something felt off. When Emily's fiancé, Mark, unexpectedly pulled out a chair for me at the table, a ripple of gasps swept through the crowd. I could feel a dozen eyes boring into us, curious and judgmental. What was supposed to be a celebration turned into a thrilling suspense. What did everyone know that I didn't? As I took a seat, I noticed the flicker of candlelight casting eerie shadows on the wall. The air was thick, almost electric. My heart raced, each beat a drum warning me of impending doom. Not far away, I spotted Mark's sister, her expression twisted with an unsettling combination of joy and something darker, something lurking just beneath her smile. The whispers began, hushed yet urgent, slipping between the cranny of laughter. "Did you hear? About the family secret?" Floated through the air like a smoke ring that wouldn't dissolve. Tension twisted in my stomach. "What secret?" The question gnawed at me. I glanced at Emily, radiant in her gown, utterly oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around us. And then, I noticed the chair. As I shifted to get comfy, a splinter of wood splintered from its leg, a raw, jarring sound slicing through the laughter. Mark's eyes snapped to mine, wide with fear, as if he'd just seen a ghost. Suddenly, the rhythm of the evening changed. Forks dropped. Conversations halted. The atmosphere thickened like fog rolling in at dusk. I felt the weight of a heavy gaze, icy fingers tracing down my spine. In that moment, I knew I had stepped into something far more sinister than a wedding reception. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as I thought things couldn't get weirder, the lights flickered once, then again before plunging us into darkness. Panic surged, and as murmurs erupted, I scrambled for my phone, its screen illuminating the dread on the faces around me. Mark was by my side, his expression now set in grim determination. "Stay close," he whispered. His grip on my arm tightened while shadows danced wildly around us. What had he pulled me into? What dark secret lay hidden beneath the cheerful facade of this wedding? The darkness swallowed the room, transforming it into a realm of confusion and chaos. The laughter that once filled the air turned into a frantic murmur, punctuated by sudden screams and stifled sobs. My heart pounded like a war drum. "Mark," I gasped, my voice barely breaking through the chaotic whispers that filled the void. "What is happening?" He leaned in closer as the shadows enveloped us, whispering urgently, "I need to get you out of here. Trust me." His grip was unyielding. Before I could reply, a sharp clash echoed from the other side of the room, a chair toppling over, and suddenly the world around me felt like it was spinning. I blinked hard, straining to see anything through the dim light of my phone. But all I could make out were silhouettes, frantic movements chasing after something unseen. Footsteps thundered, and I felt a jolt of fear as Mark steered me toward the exit, half dragging me behind him. I caught sight of the flower arrangements swaying violently, their petals shuddering in the unseen winds of panic. Then I heard her voice, the sweet chime of Emily calling out, fragile, yet loud enough to pierce through the din. "Mom, where are you?" My heart dropped. I couldn't let her be stranded in this madness. "Wait," I pleaded. "We can't leave her." Mark hesitated for a fraction of a second, and that terrified me more than the darkness. "We'll get her," he snapped, turning back to navigate through the silhouettes that were now a frenzied mob, desperate to escape. I felt my chest tighten with anxiety. The wedding guests were pressed together, faces twisted with fear and confusion. Anyone could be hiding dark motives behind their terrified masks. Was I being led into a trap instead of safety? Suddenly, a shrill scream pierced the air, freezing me in place. It was too close. I turned instinctively toward the noise and gasped as a woman fell to the ground, her dress fanning out like a flower opening in slow motion. From the shadows emerged Mark's sister, her face pale, but her eyes wild with something that looked like rage, not fear. "Karen, stop!" Mark shouted as he instinctively pulled me closer, a shudder of dread running through me. What was she doing? I want to let it happen. Karen's voice was raw, trembling with emotion. "You can't ruin everything, not on this day." I glanced back at Mark, confusion flooding my mind. What is she talking about? I breathed, but the noise enveloped my words. Before Mark could answer, the lights flickered back to life. The sudden brightness felt blinding after our plunge into darkness. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as faces shifted from fear to disbelief. But the chaos wasn't over. In the harsh lighting, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing at the end of the hall, shadows clinging to them like a cloak, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "Emily!" I shouted, realizing my daughter was still in the eye of this storm. The room quieted again as we all turned our attention to the figure, the tension coiling tighter. What dark secret had unfolded? I wondered, my heart thudding violently against my ribcage. "Mom," Emily whispered, her face alight with sheer panic as she stepped forward from the crowd. "You need to know the truth. It's worse than you can imagine." I felt my breath catch, the world tilting again. What truth? What were we even standing on the brink of? And there, in that moment of frozen anticipation, I understood. This was just the beginning. What could be worse than the scene that had already unfolded? How deep did this rabbit hole go? "Mom, listen to me," Emily cried, her voice shaking like leaves in the wind. I could see the raw panic etched into her features, her eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. "It's about him. James. He is not who he says he is." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. What could she possibly mean? Why now? My mind raced as the light flickered ominously, casting flickering shadows across her face, stretching the tension in the room to a breaking point. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, desperate to understand. The weight of the moment felt suffocating, pressing down on my chest as I tried to suppress the instinct to flee, to run from whatever horror lay unraveling before us. "Please," she pleaded, taking a step closer, her trembling hands reaching out for mine. I overheard him talking to Karen. They were planning something. And it's not just about the wedding. It's something far worse. A shiver crept down my spine. A plan? What could possibly involve my daughter and her fiancé? I was desperate for answers, but the raging storm of the crowd surrounded us, voices rising like an angry tide. Faces pushed against faces, all seeking clarity behind the chaos, yet no one was getting it. "Is this true?" Mark's voice cut through abruptly, nearly drowning me in a tidal wave of emotion. He had turned sharply to face his sister, anger flaring in his eyes. "You didn't tell me. You let this happen." Karen stepped forward, the tension crackling like static. "I was protecting you," she shrieked, her voice fierce and cut through the murmur of despair. "You wouldn't have believed me. No one would." I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. Could it be that the chaos had been orchestrated, manipulated by someone we thought we knew? "What do you know, Karen?" I pushed, my heart racing. "What is James involved in?" The lights flickered yet again, shadows stretching, and a low rumble echoed in the distance, like thunder. In that moment, every eye turned toward the end of the hall where that ominous figure still stood, silhouetted against the flickering lights. A figure whose identity felt more like a haunting than a certainty. "Emily," I called, reaching for her as a new wave of fear gripped me. "Stay close." But James suddenly stepped forward, brow furrowed, and a strange calmness washed over him, an unsettling contrast amidst the hysteria. "Everyone, please," he barked. "This is ridiculous. You're all panicking over nothing. You can't fool us." She snapped back, defiance rising in her voice. "What are you hiding?" Without warning, he lunged toward her, and the crowd gasped collectively, shifting like a chaotic sea of bodies. Something cold gripped my heart as I watched, frozen. "Stop," Mark shouted, moving toward his sister as if protecting her from the chaos that surrounded us. But it was too late. The world around me felt like it was unraveling. Then, with a sickening sense of dread, I saw it, a glint of metal, illuminated for a brief second like a comet streaking through the night sky before plunging back into darkness. A knife? My breath caught, and I screamed, "No?" But the scream was drowned out by the roar of the mob. People surged forward, the momentum turning into a stampede of terror. I felt Mark grab my arm, pulling me back, but my legs felt heavy, refusing to move. What is happening? I sobbed as the panic filled the air like a thick fog. Trust me, Mark shouted again, his voice barely breaking above the din. We need to get out of here. I didn't know where to go, but the terror on Emily's face, the fear building around us, it all felt like an unending spiral leading nowhere good. I had to face the truth, the dark secret lurking just out of sight. Mom, we're running out of time, Emily yelled, and in that moment, the world around me blurred. Answers danced just beyond my reach, keeping secrets locked away in a chaos I couldn't comprehend. And as I turned back toward Emily, I realized the storm was only just beginning. What had been set into motion would change everything, and I was caught in the eye of it, powerless to stop the spiraling chaos about to hit. I had to know the truth, and fast. What had they planned? And why did I feel like I was standing on the precipice of disaster? The crowd surged like a restless ocean, each heartbeat drumming louder as adrenaline ignited my senses. I felt Mark's grip tighten on me as he pulled me toward the nearest exit. Emily stood frozen, eyes locked on James, her breath quickening, fear giving way to sheer determination. Emily, we need to move, I shouted, the panic threading through my voice, but she wouldn't budge. No, I have to know. Her voice sliced through the chaos, anchoring me in place. The lights flickered once more, casting fleeting shadows that swirled around us, revealing a tableau of terror unfolding. James was shouting now, his voice barely rising above the roar of the crowd. I said stop, but his words were mere whispers against the mounting chaos, his initial calmness replaced by a desperation that felt dangerous. In his eyes, I saw something shifting, an underlying fury that flickered dangerously close to the surface. Why are you doing this? Emily yelled back, her courage shining like a beacon amid the hysteria. Who are you, James? The crowd around us began to blur into a blur of faces, anger mixed with fear, uncertainty bubbling over. I could hear snatches of conversations, people whispering about the knife, about the scene earlier. Confusion reigned, and I felt it snaking around my own heart, squeezing tighter with every passing second that a figure shoved through the throng. Breaking towards us, it was Karen, eyes wide and frantic. We have to go? Now, she urged, urgency spilling from her lips. He is not just dangerous. He is connected to something bigger. Connected to what? I pressed, dread pooling in my stomach. I could feel the walls closing in, suffocating me in the weight of the moment. The very air seemed charged, thick with unsaid truths. Trust me, please, Karen pleaded, glancing nervously back at the shape of James, who was now pushing his way through the crowd, maintaining a tense composure. He has got people, bad people who won't hesitate. People? My mind raced, flashing with images of those I thought I knew, now cloaked in shadow. What do you mean? Karen took a shaky breath, her words barely a whisper against the roars. He is part of a crime ring. They're using this wedding, the chaos, as a distraction. Something is going to happen, and we need to. In that moment, a loud crash interrupted her. A table tipped, spilling glasses and food across the floor. The sound sliced through the tension like glass, sharp, undeniable. And then a scream erupted from the far side of the room. Get down, Mark shouted, yanking Emily back as the crowd surged forward, panic fracturing reason. I stumbled, adrenaline surging through me, and in that chaos, I lost sight of both Emily and Mark. The world seemed to warp and distort, screams echoing into an unending spiral as I searched for them. My heart raced, each beat loud and furious, a pulsating reminder of the terror tightening like a vice. Then I felt it, a hand gripping my shoulder tightly, spinning me around. It was James, and the expression on his face sent icy dread flooding through my veins. You have to listen to me. We don't have much time. What do you mean? What is going on? I stammered, but before he could answer, another loud noise echoed, this time closer, a heavy thud, followed by frantic footsteps. Shadows loomed closer, faces intermingling in fear and madness. Mom, I heard Emily's voice pierce through, filled with raw fear, but it felt as if my heart were in a splintered cage, the sound distant yet close enough to break my composure. Emily, where my voice trembled, fear swirling like a tempest inside me. I needed to find her, to understand. I couldn't allow this darkness to swallow us whole. Follow me, James urged, but the hesitation in his voice set new fears racing through my mind. Directly behind him, two men stepped forward from the shadows, eyes cold and intent. Let us make this easy, shall we? One of them said, his tone smooth but unervingly threatening. My heart pounded. I could feel the storm building, and in that heartbeat, I realized none of us would escape unscathed. Where's Emily? I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice as everything spiraled and twisted into uncertainty. And then it hit me like a flash of lightning, the answers. The truth, it was all out of reach. But I needed to know what James was truly up to. What had he pulled us into? As their presence loomed closer, dark secrets threatening to consume us, I understood one thing. The real nightmare was just beginning. Would we be able to escape the chaos before it was too late? The chaos swirled around me like a ferocious storm. Distant screams intermingled with the shouts of panic, the air thick with tension. I felt trapped, torn between the twin desires to find Emily and flee this nightmare. My eyes darted back to James, his expression a storm of anxiety and something darker. Please, you have to trust me, he said, breath coming in harsh pants. His hands trembled slightly, a flicker of doubt crossing his face as he faced the two men behind him. There's more at stake than you realize. More than my daughter's safety? I shot back, my voice cracking. An echo of Emily's terrified scream rang in my ears, each note like a dagger driving deeper into my chest. Everyone's in danger, he started, but I didn't let him finish. Before I could react, one of the men lunged forward, his hand raised threateningly. Enough of this. Time to make a choice, your lives or a lot of others. His words dripped with menace, the threat clear and icy. I pressed against the wall, heart racing, as the pounding crowd surged around us. My thoughts raced along a jagged path. I had to find Emily, had to protect her. Where is she? I yelled, my voice barely cutting through the chaos. James's gaze flickered back to the crowd, the flickering lights above illuminating the fear in his eyes. We need to move before they find her. They're looking for something, and it's hidden within all this chaos. But we have to hurry. Find who? My mind spun. What are you talking about? Fingers gripped my arm, tightening like a vice. There's a reason the wedding is happening here. They're using it as a front. You don't understand what is at risk. Just then, the lights flickered violently. A shadow darted past us, and the crowd recoiled as a loud crash echoed from the front of the hall, glass shattering underfoot, and a spotlight catching a figure as they tumbled to the ground. Murmurs of fear fluttered through the throng, followed by the unmistakable scent of smoke wafting through the air. Now, James shouted, urgency flooding his voice. He turned and bolted toward the far side of the room, dragging me along. I could barely keep up, confusion and dread twisting my insides. I didn't want to trust him, but with every panicked glance back, my heart screamed for Emily. With each stride, I searched desperately for her. The murmur of her name felt like a prayer in my mind. Emily. I caught a glimpse of her just for a fleeting second, lost in the throng near the rear exit, a figure with dark hair, wide eyes, and fear etched into her every expression. Before I could reach her, someone knocked into her, sending her stumbling. Run, I yelled, but the words felt trapped in my throat. Mark appeared, pushing through the chaos toward her, a determined look in his eyes. Emily, he shouted, desperation mingling with resolve. The two shadows behind us began to move, darting through the crowd like predators closing in on their prey. I could hear them urging each other on, their voices low and threatening. My stomach tightened in fear as the realization washed over me. They weren't just after James, they were after all of us. Stay close, James said, grabbing my hand tighter as we pushed through the crowd, the tension crackling in the air like a live wire. We were running out of time, and I could feel it as Mark got closer to Emily. A flash of steel glinted in the dim light, the blade of a knife held by one of the shadows pursuing us. My breath caught in my throat. Mark, watch out, I screamed, just as the world erupted around us. Everything shattered in a moment. The lights blinked out, plunging us into darkness. The last thing I heard was the sound of something slicing through the air, followed by Emily's terrified scream. As darkness enveloped me, I realized this was just the beginning of a nightmare I had never been prepared for. What had James dragged us into? And would we have the strength to fight our way out? I stumbled through the darkness, my heart racing wildly. The world around me was pitch black, panic rising like bile in my throat. I felt James's grip tighten as we maneuvered through the chaos. This way. His voice cut through the suffocating shadow, pulling me like a lifeline. Suddenly, a chilling sound reverberated through the silence, footsteps marching with a purpose. My pulse quickened. Was it them? Were they closing in? I instinctively pulled my arm away from James, trying to find my footing, desperate to regroup with Emily and Mark. We have to find them. I barely managed to whisper, fear clawing at my insides. Trust me, James insisted, dragging me further away. Stay low. Don't let them see us. The urgency in his voice was alarming. He seemed to know too much, and every word only deepened my anxiety that I stepped carefully, feeling the shattered glass underfoot and the rush of panicked bodies pushing past. I craved a glimpse of light, some sign that everything had spiraled completely into madness. Then, it came a flicker from a gaping window, illuminating a part of the room where shadows seemed to creep like living entities. Over there, I pointed, squinting through the dimness. I could make out vague forms darting in and out of view. Emily. The name escaped my lips, carrying a prayer and a plea, but the only response was the deafening silence that followed. James pulled me closer as we ducked behind a crumbling pillar. They want the package, he muttered, breathless and frantic. Emily is caught up in this. They think she knows something. What are you talking about? I hissed, dread pooling in my stomach. What have they done to her? They think she is connected, he urged, his voice urgent but low. I had no choice but to bring you all along. I never meant for you to get wrapped up in this. My mind spun, straining to grasp the threads of his confession. Was he saying Emily was at the center of this chaos? How could he drag us into something like this without warning? Rage mixed with fear churned in my veins. I was supposed to protect her, not thrust her deeper into danger. That a commotion erupted nearby, footsteps pounding against the floor, and I froze, instincts taking over. The low, threatening growl of a voice echoed through the hall, slicing the night air. We know you're here. You can't hide forever. Run, I shouted, terror propelling me into the fray, even as I felt James's hand slip from mine. I pushed through the crowd, praying to catch a glimpse of Emily or Mark. The room twisted and turned, chaos rippling. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my shoulder and yanked me back. I gasped, adrenaline surging as I turned to meet a stranger's unforgiving glare. Where is she? He growled, his eyes narrowing. Let me go? I shouted, trying to shake him off, but he tightened his grip. My world wobbled as panic clawed its way back in. Just then, the lights flickered back to life, revealing the terrified faces of wedding guests and shadows that had become all too familiar. I scanned the room, the realization dawning. It was a trap. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was a web of deceit, and we were ensnared. Found you, the stranger's voice sent shivers down my spine. In that instant, I saw a flash behind him, a glimpse of long, dark hair that could only belong to Emily. The sight ignited a fierce instinct in me. Emily, I screamed, desperation driving every word. As my eyes locked onto her, I saw the fear etched deeply on her face. Before I could reach her, I heard the unmistakable sound of a gun cocking nearby. Time slowed as dread washed over me. This was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a fight for our lives. What did we truly walk into? And how far would I go to save my daughter? The gun clicked, a sound that sent ice through my veins. My heart pounded in my chest like a war drum, drowning out all thought. The stranger's glare tightened, brows furrowing as he locked in on my frantic expression that I wrestled with my instincts. Should I bolt? Should I fight? But I couldn't leave Emily behind, not now. She was still out there, tangled in this nightmare, and I wouldn't let fear hold me prisoner. Back away, I shouted, my hands raised in a placating gesture, even as my heart screamed to push forward. The glow of the lights flickered overhead, bathing the room in an eerie twilight. I was acutely aware of every breath, every heartbeat, as if the world had narrowed to this single moment. To my left, someone screamed. Panic recoiled like a rubber band pulled too tight, and chaos erupted around me. Guests scrambled, some knocked to the ground. I could hear the dull thud of bodies hitting, muffled cries piercing through the commotion. The stranger's grip slackened for just a heartbeat, but it was enough. With a sudden jerk, I broke free. Wings of adrenaline lifted me off the floor, and I sprinted toward the shadows where I had last seen Emily. Emily! I cried again, lungs burning with desperation, and then I was wading through a sea of bodies, knees weak with the strain of exertion. I needed to find her. I could feel the heat of breath on my neck, the pulse of footsteps gaining on me. It was them that a tangle of figures emerged at the far side of the room, and there, pressed against the wall, stood Emily. My heart swelled with hope, but it twisted into terror when I saw what surrounded her. A group of men, determined and ruthless, encroaching on my daughter like wolves closing in on their prey. No, I roared, every ounce of my being fueling the scream that tore from my throat. That I surged forward, shoving past startled guests who looked ready to flee, trapped in their own panic. The men turned, eyes locking onto me. For a brief second, it was as if time froze me, the harried father caught between safety and the impending hell unfolding in front of me. Get away from her, I shouted, summoning the strength I barely felt. I lunged like a madman, fists clenched, a caveman fighting for his family. The first man stumbled, shock written across his face, but I was a whirlwind, desperate and relentless. Emily's terrified gaze caught mine, and it ignited something deep within me. I wasn't just fighting for her, I was fighting for our lives. For a normalcy I feared was slipping away. My feet were fast, my hands were ready, and my heart thundered with determination. But just as I reached for Emily, two figures knocked into me. I tumbled to the ground, skin scraping against the hard floor. Panic surged once more as I scrambled to get back up. Then I heard it again, the gun cocking. My breath caught, fear clawing its way up my throat. Let her go? The voice came, low and deadly, and I felt the world tilt as the reality settled on me. I turned instinctively, ready to leap into action, but there was nowhere to go. The crowd had parted, chaos swirling around us. But those men had Emily, and that was all that mattered. I was trapped, and their grip on her tightened, squeezing every last shred of hope from my chest. Dad, she whispered, her voice trembling, and in that single word, my world shattered. That a heartbeat passed before everything unleashed. Enough games, one shouted, pointing the gun straight at Emily's shaking frame. I clenched my fists, adrenaline turning to ice. I had to make a decision, fight or reason. Everything hinged on this moment, this breath. But what could I possibly do against them? Would I put my life on the line, or would I dare to bargain? The final choice loomed before me, and I didn't know if I was strong enough to face it. What would happen if it wasn't just my daughter's life at stake, but the secret that could unravel everything we believed? The silence that followed was thick and heavy, like a blanket suffocating every scream and gasp around us. My heart raced, each pulse a reminder of the stakes. I couldn't lose her. I wouldn't. I envisioned the gun's barrel trained on Emily, a cold piece of metal that could shatter everything I loved in an instant. Let her go, I managed to choke out, every syllable sharp with desperation. The world blurred, my focus narrowing to the gaze of that cold man on her. His eyes were devoid of compassion, like stones, and I knew any words I offered now might be swallowed by the storm brewing. He laughed, a low, grim sound that echoed off the walls, blending with the frantic whispers of the crowd behind me. You think you can bargain with me? He leaned in, aiming the gun so it barely trembled. I don't want your money, old man. I want what us do. What do you mean? I asked, confusion injecting a moment of clarity into my fear. Each second felt like an eternity, and I wondered if those precious few moments could buy us time. He stepped closer. Emily trembled visibly. I could almost feel her heart racing through the distance between us. Your family has something that belongs to us, and I'm here to collect. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. A secret? What could he possibly mean? We were just a simple family, no dark dealings, no hidden treasures. Yet, deep within me, a shred of recognition clawed at my thoughts. I couldn't think about it now, not while the danger was so immediate. Diane, a desperate act, I called out to her. Emily, just breathe. I'll get you out of this. My voice cracked, full of the authority I wished I could project. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but held a flicker of strength. Dad, I'm scared. I know, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Stay with me. The man with the gun shifted, his patience waning. Enough. You should know better than to provoke me. With that, he brandished the weapon in a terrifying arc, causing panic to ripple through the crowd. Everyone instinctively ducked and fled, clearing a pathway of pure despair. Get down, I shouted, instinctively dropping to the ground, my eyes darting back to Emily. She remained frozen, but her gaze was sharp, coherent, still connected to me. Realizing the precariousness of our situation, I had to act fast. Listen, I started, aiming my words for the man. You don't want this blood on your hands, right? Think about it. There's no honor in this. Just let her go, and we can talk. Talk, he scoffed. You think you still have something to bargain with? You have no idea what you're up against. The accusation drove home like a dagger. Somewhere deep inside, I felt unease, an awareness of shadows lurking just out of sight. There were parts of my life I hadn't shared with Emily, things I had hoped had stayed hidden. What if they were coming for us? Before I could register my next move, he suddenly swung the gun towards the back of the crowd. Get that kid over here, he barked, indicating someone I couldn't see. The crowd gasped, all eyes turning, and my breath hitched in my throat. Who? Panic clawed at my sanity. There was a moment of silence before the figure emerged, a boy, not much older than Emily, his eyes wide with fear. Dad, he cried, his voice cracking. The ground felt like it was giving way beneath me. My son. My mind raced as fragmentation of memories burst forward. The days spent shielding them from the truth were now crumbling before me, under the weight of an impossible truth. No, I screamed, every fiber of my being igniting in fight or flight. But all my instincts told me I was too late. Your family's secrets are deep, the gunman growled, but it's time to face them, all of them. I felt the world tilt at that moment, my heart catching in my throat. If any thread connected my son, my daughter, and everything they believed, it was unraveling fast. I realized it wasn't just Emily I had to protect now, it was both of them. In a chilling sweep of realization, I understood the danger had multiplied, and I had to confront not only the man in front of me, but the very lies I had fought to keep hidden. Why are you doing this? I pleaded, desperation flooding my voice. Because your family is linked to mine in ways you can't even imagine. The truth was creeping closer, and I could taste the dread in the air. I had to do something, think fast before it consumed us all. But just as he leaned closer, about to reveal the depths of this unfolding nightmare, the lights above flickered again for just an instant. An unexpected sound echoed through the chaos, a sound I never would have anticipated. And in that moment, the ground beneath us shook, ready to bury every truth and expose every lie. The low rumble grew until it felt like the earth itself might crack open beneath us. The tension coiled tighter, squeezing the air from my lungs. I glanced at Emily, her eyes wide in terror, and then back to the man with the gun, his focus unbroken. What was that? I shouted, though I could barely hear my own voice over the cacophony of the crowd's panic. The lights above flickered violently, some even shattering, sending shards of glass raining down like dangerous confetti. He turned briefly, confusion flickering across his stone-cold face. What the eye seized the moment. Emily, run! I screamed, firing the command like a shot meant to break the spell. In an instant, she snapped out of her paralysis and darted towards the edge of the crowd. My heart sank, hoping she'd find cover, but the chaos turned every direction into a whirlpool of fear. Stop her! The gunman shouted, spinning to follow her movement, but not fast enough. My son was still there, rooted in shock, and suddenly I felt the weight of a choice thud against my chest. Do I protect Emily or rush back to pull him away from this nightmare? Get over here. The gunman aimed again, but his gun trembled, as if the tremors of the earth had shaken his resolve. Run, Nathan! I yelled, and he finally bolted, too. The two of them broke away from the crowd, but the man was relentlessly pursuing. In a split-second decision, I lunged towards him. What do you want from us? I shouted, trying to buy time as my feet thundered across the cracked ground. You'll get nothing from this. He smirked, an echo of malice. Oh, you'll understand soon enough. Your family holds the key. All I need is for you to unlock it. Unlock it. The words echoed in my mind, branching out twisted ideas like dark vines in my thoughts. If he was after a secret, what could it be? Why were Nathan and Emily the targets? Just then, chaos erupted as the ground trembled again. A series of low rumbles and unnatural noises escaped from beneath, setting many people to screaming and scrambling. I twisted to look behind me, the fear palpable, thick like fog. "Get down," I bellowed as cement chunks broke loose, tumbling near us. The gunman stumbled back, momentarily distracted, and I was deep in a frantic fight, battling chaos and advancing uncertainty. My pulse hammered through my body like an endless drum. Emily and Nathan disappeared into the darkness, but their faces remained frozen in my mind. I had to pull this together. I couldn't lose sight of them, not when everything was closing in. The gunman regained composure, leveling the weapon towards me. "You think you can stop this? You have no idea what's lurking." Before he could finish, an ear-splitting crash resounded from above. The ceiling, weakened by the tremors, began to cave in, and in those closing moments, the gunman's expression morphed into unadulterated horror. Debris rained down. My instincts kicked in, forcing me to shield myself, to react, but my eyes were locked on the gunman. In one barely thought act, he turned, shifting the gun. My heart stopped. Would he fire before it all collapsed? "No," I shouted, racing forward one last time, every muscle in me screaming to protect both of them. In a terrifying moment, as the ceiling crumbled, I dove across the distance, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The air buzzed with impending doom, but I had to reach him, to save my family from this darkness that had come to their door. And then, for a heartbeat, everything faded to black, and silence enveloped me. Was this the end? Or would I wake up to the interwoven webs of the past that I never thought would come crashing down, threatening to bury us all? The world returned in a rush of smoke and chaos. I blinked, struggling to breathe through the hazy air. Where was everyone? Panic surged in my veins, but I forced my body to move. Dust settled around me like a shroud as I clawed my way up from the ground. My heart raced as I pushed through the debris, desperate to find Emily and Nathan. "Emily!" My voice cracked like a whip, slicing through the muffled echoes of confusion. My mind spun as I searched the remnants of the once glorious hall. Everything that was joyous had morphed into a nightmare. Just then, I spotted them. They were crouched under a collapsed table, faces pale and wide-eyed. Relief flooded through my chest like a tidal wave. They were safe even amidst the turmoil. They were all right. But the danger was far from over, and my instincts ignited with urgency. "Let us go. Now," I called, moving quickly toward them. Emily's eyes locked onto mine, a mix of fear and determination swirling within them. She nodded, and with Nathan beside her, they crawled out of their shelter. But just then, a shadow loomed behind us. The figure of the gunman emerged from the swirling dust, eyes blazing with fury. Instinctively, I positioned myself in front of my children, adrenaline surging as I faced him. I felt the weight of the moment crashing down, the culmination of every choice, every secret that had led us here. "You thought you could escape?" He sneered, his gun aimed straight at me. "Your family is entangled in much bigger plots than you can comprehend." "Enough," I shouted, fury igniting within me. "Whatever it is, you won't take my family." I knew the stakes had never been higher. But suddenly, the air was filled with sirens, loud, commanding, finally piercing through the tension. The authorities had arrived, a blessing and a curse. The gunman's expression shifted from rage to a volatile mixture of panic and calculation. "I won't let you ruin this." He spat, and before I could react, he lunged toward me. In a surge of instinct, I sidestepped, grabbing Emily and Nathan as I pushed them safely behind me. But the gunman veered around, desperation making him reckless. With a loud crash, he collided with a nearby table, sending its remnants flying. Chaos erupted again as the guests, once paralyzed by fear, scrambled toward the exits. Then a fierce voice echoed through the hall. "Drop the weapon." It was a police officer, blue uniform a beacon in the smoky haze. As more came rushing in, the heavy realization dawned. Help had finally arrived. An escape was possible. The gunman hesitated, his eyes darting from the officer to his surroundings. "You think you can stop this?" he shouted, voice trembling with rage. "You don't know what is coming. The only thing coming is your arrest." The officer barked, moving closer, weapon trained firmly on him. Time hung in the balance. I felt my children trembling behind me. Fear wasn't just a distant specter, it was the reality woven into the fabric of our lives. Back away from the family. Another officer shouted as they surrounded him, weapons drawn and ready. The gunman weighed his options, his face contorting with fury. You think you've won? He spat. I'll be back. Your secrets aren't safe. But it was too late. The law was on the scene, ready to bring justice. With a flicker of movement, the officers tackled him, bringing him to the ground with force. Relief washed over me, but it was laced with lingering dread. He had known things about our family. What secrets lay entangled in our past that could still bring ruin? Mom, what is going to happen? Emily's voice trembled. I knelt, gripping their shoulders, searching their faces. We're going to be okay. I promise. The officers began securing the gunman, their expressions serious and grave. I knew it wasn't the end, far from it. This chaos had merely unraveled a piece of a bigger puzzle. As sirens wailed and chaos faded into hurried whispers of law enforcement and safety, I felt something within me solidify. Whatever was lurking in the shadows of our lives would not tear us apart. Not now. Not ever. The embrace of the moment settled around us as we watched the gunman being led away in handcuffs. Something was shifting, a promise of new beginnings. As we stood there, together at last, I squeezed both their hands, and for the first time that night, I felt a spark of hope. We had survived a storm, and while the road ahead was uncertain, my family was my light. Let us get out of here, I whispered, leading them toward the exit. Together, as we stepped outside into the cool night air, the stars twinkled brightly above us. We breathed in the freshness, a stark contrast to the chaos we had just left behind. And finally, as the weight of the dark secrets began to lift, I realized one invaluable truth: we had each other. No matter what shadows the future might hold, your support is crucial. You need to subscribe now to our channel to ensure you don't miss any exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm right now. Flood the comments section below with your thoughts and theories about this wild conclusion. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this story unfolds. Let us rally together. Your participation makes all the difference. And true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel.